Lawyers and cops of Reddit. What's the dumbest thing you've ever seen someone do to cover up a crime?
Story 1. My client was embezzling money from his engineering firm. He actually had the embezzled money in his possession and could have returned it. He would have faced criminal liability, but we could have negotiated a plea deal that would result in no more than a few months of probation. Given his circumstances, prison time was highly unlikely. The client didn't believe our advice. He was convinced he was going to prison and thought his best option was to return to his home country, Iran. The United States strictly prohibits the transfer of any technology that could be used in nuclear programs to Iran. I explained all of this to him. He then tried to board a flight to Iran. In his luggage was a programmable logic controller, PLC, that his firm had been subcontracted by the federal government to develop. I have no idea why he was taking this PLC with him, but it was discovered when he was pulled off the plane in Stuttgart and taken into custody. He is now facing up to 20 years in federal prison for espionage and the unlawful transfer of classified military technology to a hostile nation. People, listen to your damn lawyers. Story 2. I'm not a cop or a lawyer, but I think this still counts. During my freshman year of college, my roommate and I were hanging out with Kay, our neighbor in the dorms, along with a few of his friends. There were 6 of us total, all under 21. We had 2 bottles of liquor. One was Kay's and the other was mine and my roommate's, and we were playing beer pong. One of the guys, let's call him Q, was being ridiculously loud and blasting music. We kept telling him to tone it down because we didn't want the RAs showing up. Of course, Q didn't listen, and sure enough, the RAs came knocking after a noise complaint. I realized who was at the door and told everyone to pour the alcohol down the drain while I stalled the RAs. Just as I opened the door to talk to them, Q loudly yelled that he wasn't getting caught with alcohol and locked himself in the bathroom, blocking us from getting rid of the booze. The RAs obviously heard him and had no choice but to call campus police. When the cops arrived, they started searching. Thankfully, my roommate was an absolute legend and hid our bottle under the covers on Kay's bed, while Q was being an idiot, saving us from getting in trouble. Q, however, wasn't so lucky. The cops quickly realized he was locked in the bathroom and told him to come out. He refused, which made him look even more suspicious. Unfortunately for him, the dorms keep a master key for every room, so the RAs used it to unlock the bathroom door. The cops went in, and a few seconds later, they started laughing. Apparently, when Q barricaded himself inside, he had taken Kay's bottle of liquor with him. Normally, that might have helped, but being the genius he was, Q decided to chug the entire 5th of liquor instead of pouring it down the drain. He was only in there for about 20 minutes, definitely not enough time to safely drink that much. As soon as the cops opened the door, Q tried to stand up and make a run for it, but in his drunken state, he face-planted right onto the floor. He got up, tried to take a sloppy swing at one of the officers, missed completely, and fell again. After the cops stopped laughing at his pitiful escape attempt, they handcuffed him and took him downtown, where he was charged with a minor in possession and assaulting an officer. His stupidity ended up saving the rest of us, so I guess I'm grateful for that. But I still can't help feeling sorry for Q and the sheer level of dumb luck and dumb decisions that night. Story 3. I wasn't a cop or a lawyer at the time. I was 8, but I think you'll love this story. My mom worked at a school for teenage boys. One day, one of them decided he was going to buy a pound of plastic explosives off the internet, using the school computers. Then, for good measure, he confessed to my mom when rumors started spreading that there was some kind of bomb at the school. Now, my mother knew this boy wasn't malicious in any way, just an idiot with too much money and not enough sense. So she called the chemistry teacher, who was Polish, round, and had already gotten in trouble several times for blowing things up in his classroom. Dr. Explotja, as everyone jokingly called him, decided the best course of action was to sneak the explosives and the dim-witted student out of the school, take him to a field owned by the student's family, and perform a controlled detonation. He even said I could come along, since I was an 8-year-old who loved explosions and watching people get in trouble. So yeah, the dumbest thing I've ever seen someone do to cover up a crime was confess to every authority figure around, and then literally blow up the evidence with an 8-year-old as a witness. Story 4. Not exactly cover-ups, but definitely people trying to get away with crimes. I was a prosecutor on a case out of Cuyahoga County about 10 years ago. Back then, we had to read police reports aloud to the defense counsel. It was a complete waste of time, but that's what the higher-ups wanted us to do. One case involved an F5 possession charge for crack. The guy had a small rock. Cases like that usually end in a plea deal, probation, and time served, unless the person has a serious record. According to the report, the defendant walked into a convenience store in suburban Cleveland while clearly under the influence of something. He was acting suspicious, so the clerk kept an eye on him. He ended up shoplifting something. I waited to tell the defense counsel what he stole, just for dramatic effect. The clerk confronted him, and they got into a scuffle. Right there, I saw another possible charge, robbery. The defendant got away and jumped into his car. Police were called, and a chase ensued. Another potential charge, fleeing and eluding. He would have been looking at serious time if the case had been indicted with all those charges. But being high didn't exactly help his driving skills. He crashed the car. During the search of the wrecked vehicle, officers found a tiny crack rock. The defense attorney started insisting there was no way his client knew the rock was there and that I should get ready for trial, blah blah blah. That's when I told him that his client had stolen Shore Boy, a metallic cleaning scrubber that's commonly used to hold crack rocks and pipes. It's basically the crack equivalent of having rolling papers. The defense lawyer just shook his head and said he'd go talk to his client about pleading to the F5. In another case, the CPD Vice Unit was running a prostitution sting. An undercover officer was posing as a prostitute. If convicted, the guy would have just gotten probation. He pulled up, made the deal, and as soon as supporting units closed in, he panicked. He tried to speed away, hit multiple police cars, and even dragged an officer who was hanging onto his window. So he went from a simple solicitation charge to multiple counts of felonious assault on a police officer, which at the time carried 3 to 10 years in prison. And to top it off, when they arrested him, he had a couple of small crack rocks on him. Story 5. Police officer here, not exactly a cover-up, but still a pretty good story. About 15 years ago, we got a call for a burglary. The perp had gained access by breaking a window on the fire escape and climbing into the apartment. While we were looking around and talking to the complainant, I checked behind the dresser near the window, and lo and behold, there on the floor was a wallet. We picked it up and found a driver's license inside, belonging to a guy who lived right across the street. The victim said he had no idea who the guy was and had never seen him before. The apartment owner told us that the only item of real value he owned was missing, a 7-inch solid gold Jesus on the cross, hanging from a gold chain, with emerald eyes and the word forgiven spelled out in rubies at the bottom. A very specific, custom-made piece. The guy even had Polaroids of himself wearing it at parties. This was before smartphones. So, the three of us walked across the street to the address on the license and knocked on the door. The guy opened it, wearing the stolen gold Jesus around his neck. He looked at us and said, "Yes? Can I help you gentlemen with something?" A few months after his arrest and conviction, the owner of the chain came into the precinct wearing his prized gold necklace and brought a few pizzas for the shift to thank us for getting it back. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, activate the notification bell, and share a similar story or anything you'd like to say in the comments. See you next time.